your stomach. You can have gas, bloating, belching, diarrhea, constipation, and it has everything to do with the neurons in your gastrointestinal system. turn genes off, not Jeans, but Genes, or turn them on. He says your perspective is always limited by how much you know. I mean, that seems pretty basic, but it is. You only know what you know. You can only do what you know. So that's the reason I think Scripture keeps telling us to study. Because you are limited by what you know. And the more you know, the more you can do. Expand your knowledge, and you will transform your mind. Does that remind you of another scripture? Lots of scriptures about thinking and studying and doing and transforming your mind to become like the mind of Christ. Jonathan, I'm going to find my own clicker, and we're going to try that one. So Deuteronomy. I set before you life and prosperity. Here's another piece of brain function research. Two things, life and prosperity. You have two brain hemispheres. Only give your brain two choices at a time. Because if you give it more than two, your brain is going to drop off everything but two. And it might drop off your best choice, but you gave it so many that it just got rid of some of those. So you only give your brain two choices at a time. And sometimes you have to go down the list. You know, for example, it's your grandson's 10th birthday, and you've got several things that you'd be willing to do. So you start with two choices. For your birthday, would you like to have a group of friends over to the house, you know, and play in the backyard and have, you know, picnic and birthday cake? Or would you like us to take a trip to the zoo? Yeah, those are my only two options. Well, pick which of these you'd rather do. I think I'd rather go to the zoo. All right. Would you rather go to the zoo, or would you rather take the boat out to whatever that island is where is it the Quackers are? Is that how you say it? Rottnest. That sounds like an undesirable place to go by that name. At least as I understand English. Would you like to go to the zoo, or would you like to go to Rottnest? Well, I've been to the zoo before, but I've never been to Rottnest. I think I'd like to do that. And you know, as many options as you want to give them, you go down that way. But here's the kicker. If you really want to teach that kid how to make decisions, once he's made a decision, he's made it for that event. And unfortunately, I see that breached a lot of time. I was at the park with a group of my friends not too long ago. Next table, there's a group of, I don't know, probably 10 or 11-year-old, 9 kids, all boys, and the mother was feeding them, and they each had their skateboard. So about the time that they were finishing up the ice cream and the cupcakes, the birthday boy said to his mom, "We're tired of skateboarding." She says, "Really?" "Yeah," he says, "we've done, but we don't want to do that anymore. We want to go to the zoo." Okay, if my kids had said that, this would be my response. Well, this year you pick the skateboard park. You have two choices. You can stay at the skateboard park the rest of the day as you planned, or we'll go home. Can I go to the zoo? Not this year. You know, if you want to make that choice next year, that's fine. How else do you teach kids that when they make choices, there are always consequences? So he's whining, "But Mom, don't you love me?" Yeah, I love you enough to teach you to accept consequences. Hello. She says, "Well, help me clean up. Whether, you know, we got a couple hours to go to the zoo. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than I planned now to buy zoo tickets for just 2 hours, but okay." I'm shaking my head and I'm going, this is not good. Anyway, I set before you life and prosperity. death, and destruction. And those are almost, parenthetically absolutely opposite. Life and prosperity and death and destruction, about polar opposites. Choose life so that you and your children may live. And we are certainly talking about living on this planet, but we're also talking about living in the universe that goes on and on and on, which just is a thrilling concept to me. I don't know what the estimates in Australia are, but here's the estimates that just came out for the United States. Scientists in the United States estimate that this may be the first generation who will live shorter lives than their parents. I've been living longer and longer and longer and longer, and that's marvelous as far as I'm concerned. Largely due to what? Personal lifestyle choices. Research shows that only 30% of how long and how well you live is due to your genetic inheritance. 70% is due to the lifestyle you choose. Largely due to personal lifestyle choices that have contributed to the obesity epidemic, escalating diabetes type 2 and the other 4 types, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and dementia. People are not choosing life and prosperity. They have the information. Sometimes they don't, but often they have information, and yet they're not turning that into knowledge and practically applying it. So what's the bottom line here? Confucius. And no, I did not know him personally. I'm trying to put in the birth dates because I came back from Greece not too long ago having read a lot about Epictetus. Is that a name you know? Look it up on the internet. I find it very interesting. Epictetus was a Greek philosopher who for some reason started out as a slave. I don't know how he got to be a slave, but I know that he didn't like being a slave because he ran away. But when his owner found him, he busted one leg up so badly that he could never walk right again. At some point, he was freed. If you look him up on Wikipedia, you'll see a picture of a man sitting at a desk with his crutch there and a crooked leg. And he had a scribe that walked around with him to write down things that he said that the scribe thought was important. It's pretty hard to hold a tablet and write in it and also use a crutch. And one of the things he said was, it's not so much what happens to you that matters. It's what you think about what happens to you that makes a difference. And that's pretty impressive. So I was telling the group about this. Some kid put his hand up and said, so did you know Epictetus? 2nd century AD. No, I didn't. Well, I didn't know Confucius either, but this is what he said. It's not that I do not know what to do. Do not most of you know how you could be living healthier than you're living right now? It is that I do not do what I know. And there we come back to it's a lack of knowledge, not information. And Paul says it. What I want to do, I don't do, but what I hate, I do. I don't know if he got that from Epictetus. Some people say that when a piece of truth surfaces somewhere on the planet, it usually does in several different areas. Paul says, examine yourselves. Have you got the information? If you don't, then study. Once you've got the information, are you practically applying it as knowledge in your everyday life and learning from it? Because this is the goal. Prosper and be in good health. There's not much more that you could want. Prosper and be in good health. Even as your soul prospers. And we know now the tight connection between the brain and the heart and the immune system and the gastrointestinal system. You mess up in one area and you mess up in all of them. You start doing something that will benefit one area, and guess what? The others start benefiting too. So, do science and scripture align? I think they do. And the bottom line is, when you know better, you can do better. But you're the only one that can choose to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Irene Taylor. She will be on Sunday.